It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
And welcome into actually Purple Access. Judd Zolgad, Star Tribune sports columnist, my good friend Chip Scoggins, Declan Goff. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, the executive producer of the show, sponsored by our friends at Surly Brewing, of course, and TCL TV. Hopefully, if you're watching sports or your favorite shows, you're doing it on a TCL TV because that is the best experience. All right, Chipper. Vikings, I believe, rookies report to training camp on Sunday. We're going to have a Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell press conference on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we are going to see practice start. First full padded practice with the rules now not till August 1st. But I figured what we would do for this episode of Purple Access, I've got 5 storylines or talking points that I'm going to run past you. And we can certainly discuss. I'm curious to get your thoughts. But as we finally now with Kwesi being hired essentially right after the season, O'Connell, I think, hired in February, the wait is about to end. And so I will start at talking point 5, and let's go through these on today's show. Curious to get your thoughts. My first talking point is this. I am very curious to see, just from an overall cultural, to use Patrick Royce's favorite word, cultural standpoint, what the mood and feeling is at TCO Performance Center based on this. The mood and feeling a year ago, to me, from day one, was toxic. It wasn't workable. The quarterback and coach clearly didn't get along. The quarterback wasn't vaccinated. At the time, that was a big deal. O'Connell's a very different, younger person. And clearly, the structure of how things are now led at TCO has changed as well. What is your curiosity about just a general mood and feeling from day one with this team?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be more the same from what we've heard throughout the spring, that there's collaboration and coaches listen and they're getting along and the culture is great. And so I think you're right. I'm pretty sure it was day one or early in camp last year where Zimmer was complaining about the depth, or expressing his concern about the depth in the roster. And so I just think it's going to be night and day. Anytime you have a coaching change, you have that kind of new feel that, hey, things are better. We always hear that no matter what team, no matter what sport. Right. I mean, this is a total overhaul in terms of, because it's, a front office remake and a coaching staff remake. And so it is a blank slate, basically, except pretty much the same roster, except for a couple additions. So,
right.
But I do wonder, at some point, does that end that, okay, things are different, we're great and everything, if they put it into that kind of talk and then, look forward versus, hey, how great are things versus the fear-based organization that they had with Zim. And, to me, that is this entire season is a big experiment. Was it Zim's fault or was there more going on? Because everything that's been done through both words and things that are said, and also I think personnel moves suggest that so much of this has been dumped on the head coach from last year, and this is all his fault. And if you remove the coach but keep a lot of the same core or much of the same core, things are going to be different. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
And I think to what you're saying as well, where it gets, to me, it's going to be intriguing once camp starts and then we start to get into preseason games and eventually regular season games, Chipper, is this one too. Because of the high amount of veterans brought back, I think there's going to be, and I don't want to paint this as a negative, but I think it's a reality. I think there's going to be a pressure on those guys now because, as Zim walked out the door, we got a lot of, fear-based culture from Kendricks, O'Neill's thing about, it'll be nice to have a coach say hi. And I think that there will be a very fair assumption that the players' output and production in a lot of cases will also change based on the fact that they are now being put in an environment that they clearly enjoy more. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how many guys potentially have bounce back years based on that change and the fact that they are going to have, I think, more freedom to be themselves probably.
Well, it is. Yeah. And I kind of go back to it sort of reminds me of the Timberwolves when you remove Jimmy Butler and you move Tom Thibodeau. Yep. Well, hey, it's on you now. You got what you wanted, right? You remove the I don't know if it's burden, but the thing that everybody thought was holding you back from being better than what you are. And so, yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson's put up some ridiculous numbers.
The pressure's not on Justin Jefferson.
So, no, but it's
but like Kendricks defensively, definitely got.
I think defensively, Judd, I think more than anything is health. I mean, if these guys can stay healthy, I think they're going to be, exponentially better. But Bill Barnwell from ESPN, our friend Kevin Seifert, tweeted out today that he ranked the Vikings having and excuse me if this is one of your storylines, but having the fourth best skill position guys.
Yep.
But this offense has not maximized that in any way to the degree that it should. And we've said this repeatedly that you cannot have an offense with Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Irv Smith, although he wasn't part of it, a very statistically efficient quarterback. We can talk about the line, but you can't have those kind of skill position players and finish outside the top 10 in scoring. It's just it's not, you're not maximizing it. So that's where I think when we say these guys might be able to do more, I think that's where you're going to see it. I will be shocked if this offense, all things considered, injuries and all that we can't factor in. But as we know it, if they don't finish top 10, Judd, something's gone wrong in scoring.
Absolutely has. Okay, talking point 4, it's an offensive-based one. It's quarterback-based one, but it's not Kirk Cousins yet. It's this one. And we did a deep dive into this topic today on Purple Daily with Phil as well. But I think it's worth talking about, and it's Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond was a high third-round pick, which is not a throwaway pick.
No.
Davis Mills was taken one pick after Mond and is now, and I know that they're a dumpster fire, but he's now the Houston Texans starting QB. So he's a guy that played immediately. I think that one of the most interesting storylines in a training camp that I don't expect a lot of battles for starting jobs, I think a very interesting storyline is going to be, though, the potential development of a guy who I think was largely ignored last year because there is no question in Kevin O'Connell's mind, I think, that when you start the year, and you're going to have to assume that at some point in time, despite the fact that he's been an Ironman basically throughout his career, Kirk Cousins is going to get hurt, Chipper. I think when you kick off the season, your druthers would be to have Kellen Mond be the backup and Mannion be the third guy who helps Kirk out. But it's going to be very interesting to me to see if Kellen Mond was ignored and that there is a lot more there, or if Kellen Mond just is flat out not that good.
Well, can't play. Yeah, I mean, that's what they have to determine. And the one thing is, early on after O'Connell got hired, he scouted Mond coming out of the draft. That was part of his, they scout all the quarterbacks. So it's not like he has no background or no understanding of Mond. But watching the guy in college is a whole lot different than watching him in your scheme in the NFL. So I would say this is as important a training camp for anybody as Kellen Mond, because John, they can't go into the year with Mannion as the backup.
Exactly.
I mean, they just can't. Now, Kirk has been extraordinarily durable, and you're right. But if you can't count on health in the NFL, you always have to have a plan B that you feel comfortable with. And so, yeah, I mean, we're going to find out. He either can play or does he fit O'Connell's system, what they want to be doing. I mean, we heard, accolades and praise for him throughout minicamp in terms of learning and grasping and those types of things. But I got to imagine they're going to really push him because you want him to, I mean, he needs to be your backup. So yes. we'll see what the plan is for him there.
Yep. And that one to me is crucial because I think Mannion makes the roster for sure because he's seen as Kurt's confidant that they're clearly, and I'm not surprised by this, they're clearly doing as much as possible to keep Kirk comfortable. But if you decide that Kellen Mond flat out cannot play, like you're just like, I think have to probably go out and get a backup. like somebody, because this team is putting too much pressure on itself to completely punt. Like if they had blown the thing sky high and, Kirk gets hurt and it's like, okay, we got to play Mond or something like that, that's fine. But there are very clearly expectations here. And I don't think, to what you just said, I don't think that you can get to week 6 and Kirk goes down with an injury that's going to keep him out for a month or so and just say, you know what, Sean's going to have to play.
No.
I don't think that is an answer, certainly based on what the Vikings seem to be gearing up for expectation wise.
But that to me is worst case scenario where you have to get rid of Mannion and bring in another veteran off the street, because now you have 3 veterans in the quarterback. I don't think you want that. You want a developmental guy that you're, but you're right. A 3rd round pick. I mean, you have to figure out if the guy can play or not. And so that's a very important, even though we haven't seen a backup here with Cousins, we haven't had to, they haven't had to answer that question. It's something I just don't think with the team with this experience that they clearly said you want them to be super competitive. You cannot go in and say Sean Mannion's your number 2.
Agree completely. All right. Storyline 3 is this. The priority that I think we are about to see and probably have to grow accustomed to seeing guys kept fresh. I don't think we're going to see the starters. I don't think we're going to see the key starters play in the 3 preseason games. And the thing with Mike was, so Mike would try and keep guys fresh at times, but he didn't really like it. Like if guys didn't practice, he'd get ticked off and stuff. I think this is the dawning of a new era here where the expectation is going to be that they are going to put the priority on keeping guys fresh, and that we are probably not going to see a lot from a lot of key guys that's going to create intrigue in training camp, but it's going to be on purpose. And this time around, Chipper, no one's going to get upset when guys either don't practice or don't go hard.
No, I think the theme, would you agree, of spring, the OTAs and minicamp was that it was unusually, is light the right word? Relaxed.
Light for sure.
I mean, everything was a jog through. I mean, it wasn't it was half speed, it felt like. At some point they got to turn the dial here, right? I mean, you can't, he's clearly going to be the coach who sides on, comes out on the side of taking care of fresh, be cognizant of how players are feeling, that type of thing, kind of the Rocco, right? We're going to maintenance days. But, I mean, you sort of have to ramp up to the physicality and the speed and that part of that's just necessary going into the season. So I'm curious to see how he handles it. And we got to see the dial turn at some point right here. Right?
Okay. Well, I'll ask this question. In 2022, with new coaches, younger coaches, what is the dial turning now? Because I get totally what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but I'm prepared for it to be very different from what we have become accustomed to.
Sure. I mean, nobody's saying 2-a-days and hit them, hit full pads and all. I mean, that's archaic. That's not going to happen. But right. I don't know. It just felt like, and part of that I think was O'Connell's staff understood that they're hitting them with a ton of new information, so you don't want to beat them up physically on top of the, their minds were probably swimming with all that. I mean, you even heard veterans saying how complicated it was, and Cousins talking about having flashcards for the second time is, so I'm sure there's a lot of information they went overload them. But what does it look like? I mean, I don't know if you're not going to put on pads a lot and have full, full contact scrimmages. I mean, because then we would, we'd crush them if somebody got hurt in one of those things, saying it was pointless. But I don't know what the balance is, but it in the spring, it was definitely noticeable how much care he took to not overwork him physically. Mm-hmm. I want to see how that translates. If there is, if there is a ramp up coming here in training. I mean, there will be, obviously. I mean, everything can't be a walkthrough into training camp. But to what degree do we see that this camp, becomes more physical?
Give me your personal odds. What do you think they are on us seeing any key guys, i.e. Cousins, Jefferson, Cook, in the 3 preseason games?
Well, I don't think we'll see Cook. Jefferson, I think Cousins would want to, right?
Yeah, but McVay didn't let Stafford play in
Oh,
any
he
preseason
didn't?
games
Yeah.
for the Rams
Well,
last
maybe.
year.
Yeah, and that was a new system for him too.
It was.
I was going to say new system. You'd want some semi-live, reps in the preseason. Although we always joke about, okay, you get one series. What does that really?
Right.
What do you?
And you don't do anything.
You don't do it. You
there's
hand
no
off.
schematic to it.
Yeah, or you throw a quick pass. So, probably pretty low. Probably pretty low. I mean, I don't think Cook or Jefferson will play. To me, it's just not worth it. And you can't. I always struggle with this because you can't live in fear of injuries, and you have to get the work in, but you have to be smart about it. So
right.
But I wouldn't. I don't think I would put him out there with 3 games. No, especially if it's just if you say, okay, we're going to give him 2 carries. Well, okay, what's the point of that?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that we are as we eventually, I'm sure we'll get down to 2 exhibition games. I think we are going in the direction too of just saying guys aren't going to play I think it's a league wide thing and coaching philosophies have changed. I think
it's enough on the regular season games though.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the last month of these games and it's just like they're bad. You're playing guys that probably shouldn't be playing. It's just like I know it's a money, and if you could play on every day, they would, and if they could find an 8th day, they would do that. But
hell yeah, Chipper. I think the problem is this. I think that we have now become accustomed to regular season football in September is so poor that coaches are now like, why should I play a guy in August and risk him being hurt? Because, opening week, the first 3 weeks or so, nobody can tackle now.
Yeah.
The fundamentals are absolutely horrendous. And then they start to obviously ramp up. But my point being is I think that there's more of a, it'd be different if you were going to play your starters like the old days for a half or into the third quarter or something, but you really don't now as much. So I think that it's just like, you know what? It's not worth the chance of a Cousins or a Jefferson or a Cook or take your pick being hurt so that I can say he took contact.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's, all it takes is one injury, and we see it time and time. It's like, you big dummy. I mean, these guys are making so much money. These games don't mean anything. Why would you, put them out there for a game that's meaningless that you're not getting anything really out of it as much as you think that you are. I mean, so I understand if I was coach, I'd probably live in fear and not play anybody. I'd play all guys that aren't making the team, and just try to get to the regular season. And you're right. I mean, those first couple of games, I do think tackling is an art, and it's something that you have to practice. And if you don't practice it, it takes some time to get up to speed with, that's why the first couple of weeks you do see a lot of those missed tackles.
Exactly right. All right. Talking Point 2 is brought to you by the official beer of Purple Access, and that is the one and only Surly. Now, Chip is a furious guy. I've actually been on a Supreme Logic Bomb bender of late, which is, of course, I'm drinking responsibly, just to be clear. But, Chip, talk about your favorite beer and the Tall Boys and Surly Furious.
Well, with camp coming up, my refrigerator has to be stocked, right? Every day after a long day of used to be a different beverage when Judd and I were in Mankato. Yep. Now that we're back here and I'm at home and I can go to TCO Performance Center every day when I come back, and you've been on that field all day and it's hot. Man, a Tall Boy Surly Furious doesn't quite taste
cold glass, right?
Oh, cold glass.
I have gone to putting my beer glass in my freezer now.
I don't go to that.
I freeze it up.
Well, that makes it, I drink it fast enough that I don't think I do.
That's well put. Well put. All right, Talking Point 2. Do you expect any competitions for starting jobs to develop? Like, do you think Bradbury gets pushed? I mean, safety with Steen, does he get pushed? What do you expect as far as potential? Because it's not going to be widespread. What do you expect as far as potential competitions?
No, I don't think, in short, unless they bring in another center. I think Bradbury's the guy. I mean, I don't see any real competitions there. Defensively, is Lewis Seen going to take it from Bynum? I mean, is there enough time in training camp for that to develop? And I mean, you go in as buy him as your starter, I would assume, because that's the way it was all throughout spring, and you want your rookie to earn it. I just wonder how much time there is for. Now, if he flashes, I assume Scene's going to play a lot in these preseason games. So if he absolutely shows out and says, you got to play him, that's the one. But that's the only one really I think is potentially right.
Yep.
I guess Dantzler's your starter. I mean, that's a big question mark to me. Their cornerback situation. Who's your number 3 receiver? Is that
Osborne,
BC
he'll
Johnson?
start. Yeah, I don't know if BC's going to make this roster.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the rookie from Michigan State, is it Naylor?
Yeah.
Does he have a shot to jump in there? I don't know. I mean,
he probably does.
Maybe not your number 3. I assume it's Osborne,
right.
But when you bring back so many guys, Judd, I just don't think there's a whole lot of starting spots open.
Yeah. The thing about Scene, and I think I brought this up a few months ago with you on Purple Access as well. The thing about Scene where I'm curious is if we're going to see some 3 safety packages.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
With Bynum, Smith, and Scene, because I'm telling you, one of the things that stood out to me, and it might have been from the offseason camps, the thing that I thought stood out the most was how much the linebackers look like safeties now.
Yeah.
Like the day of the big hulking neck brace guy with the neck roll on.
Yeah, those are gone. Yeah.
Those days are gone.
And we say, okay, he's starting. Well, if Scene doesn't start, but he comes in the second play.
Yeah, who cares?
Okay, he's a start. Yeah. I mean, he's going to play like a starter, now whether he is on the field for that first official play. I always say that about the nickel too. A nickel's a starter, whether you start in that situation or not. I mean, he plays. You look at the percentage at the end of the year and say, here's who your starting guys were.
Absolutely. All right, storyline number 1 is this one, Chip Scoggins. The focus that's going to be on 2 people in particular, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, as the unquestioned, in my opinion at least, focal points of the offense. Now, Thielen's still important. Cook is too. Irv Smith Jr. perhaps is. But I do think that there is going to be, when you have basically announced that Jefferson is going to be your Cooper Kupp, which is essentially saying he's going to be a Pro Bowl, unbelievable player. And look, his first 2 years have been fantastic. But I do think that the most interesting people, offensive starters to watch, are going to be Cousins and JJ, because there is going to be an inherent amount of pressure on them to produce. Jefferson, I think I know what we're going to get. Cousins, I'm extremely curious.
Yeah, I mean, and you liked what you heard from Jefferson, and I forgot who he did the interview with earlier this week, where he said Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and but Jefferson expects himself to be that guy at the end of this year. I mean, I love his confidence, right? I mean,
yes, because he's a good kid, I think,
and it comes across in a way that, I don't know if endearing is the right word, but it's not put, it doesn't put, it's not like he's bragging, or it's like, oh, I mean, he just is a confident kid and loves football, and he's going to be great. So I was, as spectacular as his stats have been already, I think he's going to be better in this system, and just with the offensive head coach who comes from a system that had Cooper Kupp, and you saw what they did with him. So to me, it is Cousins. And I mean, we can, this argument you can talk about until tomorrow. I want to know how they're going to take a guy who has really good stats and make him better in those moments that we all debate about, right? Can he get it done when things are going crazy in the 2-minute situations? How do they make him better? And can they change? Excuse me. Can they pull him out of any, kind of the mode he gets in when it's check down, when it's playing it safe, in those situations where you want him to have a little more risk to his game?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his DNA? Is he able to break out of that mold? Because he's a really good quarterback. I mean, he's a top 12 quarterback, right?
He's physically gifted.
And so,
I mean, that arm is special.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
So does removing a head coach who he didn't get along with, does that help? Does removing an offense coordinator who was in over his head, does that help? Does putting him around in a system that is going to really put more trust in him and more on his plate, does that help him? It's fascinating to see how this is going to play out and what it does for his career. Or is he just, or have we seen his ceiling? And this is who he is.
And my dime store psychological theory on this too is that O'Connell is banking on the fact that he has the savvy and smarts that Kirk might lack. Because I mean, KOC didn't fail because of his brain. He failed because he didn't have and did not possess the God-given ability that Kirk has. So and it sounds like from the way Kevin has talked about this is he is very intent on thinking he can get Kirk the answers to the test pre-snap. And if he gives him that, it's going to enable Kirk to have success. And so that's where I think that this is a Frankenstein sort of mad scientist experiment to say, I'm going to give you 2 plays. You're going to see this, this, and this, and then adjust to that play. So ultimately, I am almost going to be out there with you mentally to help you process things. Yeah,
I mean, well, listen, better coaching is going to, you would think, make a guy a better player, right? But I also think it's as much as it is the schematic, the X's and O's, and helping them that way. John, I was struck this spring about it felt deliberate to me. O'Connell went out of his way to praise Cousins and to prop him up at every turn. Every time he talked about how great he was in terms of leadership and running things, and they turned everything over to him, and he's like, "Hey, our quarterbacks are really leading this entire team. They're doing." It felt like there was a message being sent through.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And I'm sure he's doing it behind the scenes too, obviously. That he's just trying to embolden him. Whereas, I don't know if he ever walked on eggshells around Zimmer, but it was just such a weird dynamic in the way things were that it just didn't fit right. So I think it's as much psychologically as it is putting him in better spots, X's and O's, and schematically.
If I could draw a parallel here, and look, it's the ages, the players are different, ages as well. But if I can draw a parallel, I think Kevin O'Connell, the 2022 Kirk, is going to try to be probably a little bit more behind the scenes, but it's going to try to be a little bit of what Zim was to Rhodes 2014.
Yeah.
Like I think he sees this as I can prop you up, and you've got the talent. I mean, if Mike didn't come along in 2014, I think Rhodes at his height is still good, but I don't think he's that good. Like he turned into a Pro Bowl, unbelievable. Shut down. He was a shutdown corner for a period. And so I think O'Connell is banking on essentially on the flip side of the ball with a veteran doing the same thing, because you know what? I mean, with Kirk, there's no question about it. The stats are fantastic, but as you said, it's the other things. And can you get him to take chances and understand that Matthew Stafford's interception total in 2021 might have been high, but there were a lot of times he was probably asked to do things that were taking chances. So far in Kirk's career, he has not wanted to. And can you get him to do that? Like there's a lot going on here.
Well, that lasted about a game and a half last year where, Zim was like, cut it loose. And we saw him. And then it was like, we're taking too many chances. We got to protect the ball. And so, but even, I can't remember Cousins' exact quote, but he was, he said something like, a check down's not a bad play or something like, it's like, well, no, it's not. It's not a turnover, but it's not maximizing who you are,
Correct.
Your arm and and the talent around you. So, and a lot of that goes back to some of that's probably his, comfort level with his offensive line. We know when it breaks down, that's not good for him. And so a lot is dependent on that group too. But yeah, I mean, this is, I don't want to say O'Connell was hired specifically just because of Kirk Cousins, but this was a big part of, you pay this quarterback all this kind of money, franchise type money. You better find a coach who could come in and really maximize the return on that investment.
All starts next week, Chipper.
We'll be there.
Get that hat, get that sunscreen, and I'll see you out there as the Vikings start training camp, officially starting practice on Wednesday. Talk to you next week, Chip.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Thanks. All right, bye.